Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of our I Do Work Here Lady, where people who work at places get mistaken for regular Joe Schmoes. In this episode, we have 7 stories. The first is actually a story that happened to my next-door neighbor, and it's about how shaving a beard can get you in some minor trouble with security. The second story is why you should always be nice to everyone. You never know who you're talking to. The third story is a wholesome story about an employee mishap at a bar. I hope you stay for the stories today and subscribe for future videos. This story is titled, My Beardless Babyface Gets Me in Trouble at Work. This happened to me a few years ago when I began a new management position at my current job. At the time, I was 35 years old and had been at this company for a few months. Growing up, I've always had a baby face, constantly looking significantly younger than I really am to this day. At 40, I still get ID'd when I'm at the bar or a liquor store. I eventually figured out that I could hide my baby face and look my age by growing a beard. I discovered this when my old workplace decided to do a charity thing one Movember, and since then, I've kept a well-trimmed beard because I love the look, the feel, and how I didn't get ID'd at every turn. Here's some context. I ride my bicycle to work, and I generally get to work about half an hour before anyone else. This is important. At the new job, which was in a tall office building, I had my own office down the hall from the receptionist's desk near the entrance. The employee entrance was near the back, so whenever the receptionist and my team arrived, they'd all have to walk past my office. At the time, I had lost a bet to a friend and was forced to shave off my beautiful beard. It was a very sad moment for me because I'd spent so much time and money growing and grooming that gorgeous facial hair. Anyway, that particular morning I had just arrived at work, parked my bike in the storage room as usual, and went to my office to start getting ready. I was still in my biking outfit, sweatpants, workout shirt, older faded hoodie, with a big backpack containing my towel and work clothes. I was giving myself a moment to put away my bike helmet, my bag into my drawer, and my wallet into my desk drawer. I took an extra couple of minutes to log my bike commute to work on my phone. There's also a shower at work, and I always take a quick rinse to get the sweat off and style my hair before I start the day. I was just starting to go through my cabinets to pull out my shower items when someone knocked on my office door. I looked up to see a couple of security guards, ones who work for the whole building, not for our company in particular. The conversation went something like this. Guard 1 said, "Morning?" I replied, "Good morning." Guard 2 said, "How's it going?" "Good. How about you?" I responded. "Not bad, not bad." What are you doing here?" he asked. I thought that was a weird thing to ask, but I said, "I'm gonna go take a shower." Guard 1 said, "You can't do that, kid. This is a private office, and you can't be here." I'm thinking, kid? What's he talking about? Guard 2 added, "I'm gonna have to ask you to leave right away." Both security guards then came into my office, took me by the arms, and started guiding me out. I didn't physically try to fight them, knowing full well that the situation could get worse. It didn't stop me from trying to tell them they were wrong, though. I said, "I work here." Guard 1 replied, "Kid, you do not. We're going to escort you out of the building and off the premises. If you make this harder than it should be, we'll have to get the police involved." I was beginning to tell them that I indeed worked there, but he interrupted me and said, "Please cooperate." As they were pulling me out, we started to pass the front desk where the new receptionist, Katie, was standing with one of my team members, Mark. Both of them were watching me like hawks, like I was a helpless child. I called out to Mark for help and said, "Mark, help me, please." I saw, in slow motion, Mark's confused face turn to shock as his eyes opened wide. He came running over, stopped the security guards, and explained that he knew me and that I indeed worked there. They questioned him a bit and promptly apologized to me. They told me they had received a call that there was someone rummaging through my office trying to steal something. Katie then let out, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry," out of nowhere, scaring all of us. It turns out the receptionist, Katie, who had started earlier in the week, did not know that I biked to work and came in early. She got to work extra early that day, and when she came in, she saw me out of the corner of her eye in my office. 1, she thought I was some homeless kid trying to steal something valuable, and 2, she didn't recognize me for the life of her since I'd shaved my beard and looked like a tall boy. It didn't help that no one in the office had ever seen me without a beard, so if I hadn't called out to Mark for help, I doubt he would have recognized me without my voice. I've done my best to never shave off my beard again. Some people are just cursed with a baby face forever, and unfortunately my neighbor is one of those people. He really does look like a 10-year-old when he shaves his beard, even though he's over 40. When he does have a beard, he actually looks like he's 50. This story is titled, Poor parking garage behavior preps prospective employee for poor performance eval. Try saying that 5 times. I used to work for a large state agency, and after 5 years I had become a manager. My office was in the state office downtown, and parking was scarce, but middle management and upper staff had reserved parking in the garage attached to our building. This was a great perk since it's a cold state, and on days when the tower garage was full, you'd have to park in a private garage about a mile away and walk. One day, I had a few errands and pulled up to the garage a little later than usual. By the time I'd gotten there, the sign on the garage said it was full, but I had a parking badge that would let me go in anyway and drive to my reserved parking spot. There was a man at the gate who was trying to get in despite the sign saying it was full. When I realized he didn't have a badge, I backed up a little and honked my horn to let him know that he could back up. This infuriated him. He got out of his car, flipped me off, and hurled some choice words my way as he backed out of the spot. I pulled up to the gate, and he yelled some more words my way about how clueless I was and that I couldn't read that the garage was full. I ignored him and assumed he was just some guy there for a meeting at one of the dozen or so agencies in our building. I parked my car, got to my desk, and received an email from HR that one of the upper managers was sick and that I needed to cover some interviews. Interviews in our agency start with a group of prospective employees working on a small project together, and then the candidates sit in front of a panel individually. I walked into the room where all the candidates were sitting, and there I saw him, parking jerk. I was in my car, so he didn't get a great look at me, but I knew exactly who he was. The candidates introduced themselves and got to work on their small project. Parking jerk was trying to control the entire process, but they successfully completed the project as a team. The panel then asked all the candidates to go sit in the hall while we discussed, and we would call them in individually when we were ready. Once they were out of the room, I told my coworkers about my interaction with parking jerk, and they burst out laughing. We called him in first and began asking him basic employment questions. He was otherwise a strong candidate, but was very full of himself. The rest of the panel went first. Finally, it was my turn, and I said, "How do you react to stress?" Parking jerk replied, "I handle it just fine. I'm a very level-headed person." I said, "Come on, everyone gets a little flustered at some point." He said, "Not me. I'm cool as a cucumber." I responded, "So you never do anything like get out of your car and yell at a stranger?" Parking jerk stood there in silence. I continued, "Or call them names and tell them to, quote-unquote, learn how to read, you freaking idiot." The blood drained from his face, and I said, "Do you realize this job puts you in front of the media frequently and someone's always watching? Do you realize that if you were to work here, your actions would reflect not just on you, but on your director, the department as a whole, and the state government? Do you think that if you were in my position, you would hire someone who behaved as rudely as you did?" Parking jerk hung his head in shame and said, "I think I may not be cut out for this position." I told him, "That doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad person, but you may not be ready for this job." He was deflated. I really think that was the first time someone had held him accountable for his actions. He did not get the job, but a few years later I saw him working for another agency, and by all accounts, it sounds like he'd learned his lesson. Poor parking jerk. I'm glad he learned his lesson. This story is titled, "Bartender Tries to Throw Me Out. I'm an Employee." I'm a party host at my place of work, which happens to be attached to a bar. Both businesses are owned by the same man and work hand in hand. I've been an employee there for a little over a year now, yet I'd never made a run down to the bar before until yesterday. I'm 18, but I've been mistaken for 13 numerous times. Regardless, I'm far too young to be sitting at a bar. For the party I was working, though, I had to make runs down to the bar to get food for my party. So, I headed down to grab some food from the kitchen and started taking it over when I heard a lady yell something. I'm a bit on the skittish side, so if someone yells, I'm like a deer in headlights. I turned and saw the bartender pointing at me, calling me over. I toddled toward her like an apprehensive squirrel, and she grabbed my arm and told me I had to leave while dragging me to the door. I was stunned, but I still had the sense to dig my heels in and nearly drag her down. Once she recovered from suddenly holding 95 pounds of dead weight, she once again told me that I had to leave. I asked, "Why?" A very reasonable question. She looked at me with that disappointed mom face that I'm very familiar with and said, "There is no way you're 21 and I'm not having a kid here while I'm working the bar." At this point I reached my tipping point. I'm pretty easily overwhelmed, and honestly, it was a miracle I lasted that long. I started crying. My words were strained and garbled by sharp breaths and little sobs. I was stuttering to the point where I might as well have been speaking Morse code. When I finally managed to choke out, "I'm just trying to do my job," I don't know how much of that sentence was actually intelligible when I said it. Enough, I suppose, because she looked at me with eyes full of pure regret. Her talon-like grip loosened, and for the first time, she noticed what I was wearing, a blue shirt with my work's logo and staff written in big block letters on the back. Unlike some people's stories, mine had a pretty okay ending. The second she realized her mistake, not only did she apologize profusely, but she helped calm me down from the hysterics I'd thrown myself into. Afterward, she was very nice and quick to help me the whole rest of the night. If I needed anything at all, she was there, asking, "What do you need, baby girl?" This story was sent to me by a subscriber who doesn't have a Reddit account, and it's titled, "I Thought That Couldn't Be the Price, so I Just Ripped Off the Tag." I work at a discount retail store that puts our own store-branded tags on merchandise instead of manufacturer's tags. As I'm walking around the store, I see a lady kind of hiding in the corner looking suspicious. I stealthily walk to a spot where I can watch her from afar, and she's ripping off the price tags of items. She doesn't look like she's stealing, but I know she's doing something shady in general. So, I walk up to her and ask, "Excuse me, what are you doing?" She replies, "Oh, it's none of your business." I tell her, "You're not supposed to be doing that in the store, so it is my business." Then she says, "Oh well, the tag said $40, and I thought that couldn't be the price, so I ripped the tag off." It's clear what she's doing. She's ripping off the price tags of items and intentionally planning to put lower prices on more expensive items so when they're scanned, she'll pay the lower price. It's kind of clever, but I've been in retail for a long time, so this little scam isn't new to me. I say, "It's not going to work, ma'am." When the cashier scans the items or even sees that the price tags aren't on properly, they'll check the price of the item. She tells me, "You don't know that. You don't work here." I reply, "Ma'am, I do work here," pointing at my name tag. At this point, it's clear that she's a very dishonest person, and it's pretty much theft. She knows she's caught. She tells me she'll never do it again, doesn't want any trouble, and literally leaves the cart in the corner. I watch her walk out of the store. My co-workers and I laugh about it, and now we keep an eye out for her just in case she tries to come back and swap price tags. Guys, I've never worked in retail, but I was at Walmart one time, and I saw a guy with his kid try to do something like this. He was taking a sticker off a cheaper-priced hockey stick and sticking it over the top of a more expensive one. If he had walked up to the self-checkout scanner, scanned the expensive hockey stick, paid the lower price, and shown a printed receipt, he probably would have gotten away with it scot-free. But he didn't. Karma came along, and he was caught by a Walmart employee. I don't know what happened after that. This next story is titled, "I'm Your Server and the Manager." A few years ago, I started serving at a family-owned restaurant in my town. I quickly became close with the owner and the owner's daughter and helped them with more than just serving. I became head server and then bar manager. Since it was a smaller restaurant, I kept serving because I made way more money that way. We had a special every day for wine. We had a shelf filled with wine bottles. Each shelf was either 15, 25, or 50% off. It was a great deal, and typically we sold it for about $5 to $10 more than we were paying per bottle of wine. I don't know if this is well known, but a lot of restaurants upcharge their alcohol quite a bit to make profits, so it was a great deal for people. One day, a lady comes in with her friends and immediately starts causing problems. I end up taking over for the original server because they were so rude to her, and it was her first day of serving by herself. The lady ends up ordering one of the 25% off bottles, which ended up being around $7 more than you can buy at the liquor store. How do I know this? At the end of the meal, I can hear her talking to her friends about how she's going to get the bottle of wine for free. She knew I was right there and could probably hear her, but she probably thought I was just a server and probably not too bright. I may be a bit clueless sometimes, but I'm not foolish. At this point, I'm so ready to tell her no, and I actually wander by a few times so she can try it. Sure enough, she snaps at me, literally snapping her fingers, and calls me over saying, "I want you to get your bar manager. I looked online and found this bottle of Merlot for this amount, and you charged me this amount plus $7. I'm not paying this ridiculous overcharge, and I also want to talk to them about the service today. I'm not impressed with you." Now, not to toot my own horn, but I was a good server. There weren't many people in the restaurant at the time, so I know I didn't neglect them. I even substituted food for them and didn't charge them any upcharges. She looked at me with such a smug face until I smiled back at her and said, "Actually, I am the bar manager." I've never seen such a comical change in expression outside of a sitcom. She said, "You're the bar manager?" I smiled, nodded, and said, "Every restaurant will charge you more for the products than we buy them for. That's how we make profits. I'm not going to be discounting the wine, and as far as issues with the service, I would be happy to listen to your complaints and take them into consideration for the future." She spluttered, grumbled, and told me, "Well, I'll never be coming back here." "Okay, good riddance, lady." She didn't come back, but her friends did and became some of my favorite regulars. They told me a few months later that the only reason they went out with her was because she was one of their sisters-in-law and didn't have any friends. I wonder why. Yikes! "Hey, Jane, watch. I'm going to get this bottle of wine for free. We won't have to pay for it. Just watch me." And then this happens. Oh my goodness, I'd be so embarrassed, but then again, I wouldn't have tried to pull this stuff in the first place. This next story is titled, "Yes, I do work here. And no, I can't do that for you." Every once in a while, when I have a weekend off, I'll go to my workplace and sit at the bar because the bartender is a great friend of mine. I obviously don't wear my uniform or anything close to that when I do this. I do have some visible tattoos and a pixie cut, and I'm the only female in the place with one, so I'm fairly recognizable, even if you aren't a regular of mine. So, there I am, enjoying my beer, when a customer I've seen maybe 3 or 4 times comes up and taps me on the shoulder. She's a regular, and I've waited on her once. She was one of those entitled customers who think she's always right, and she's given us trouble before. She says, "You work here, right?" I reply, "Yes, ma'am, but I have the night off. I'm finally able to relax for once." I say that quite cheerily because I'm actually in a great mood. She replies, "Well, since you do work here, I need you to go to the manager's office and see if my sunglasses are there." Keep in mind, she could have asked her waitress or the bartender this, and she was very blunt and rude while saying it. I lie and say, "I'm sorry, ma'am, I'm actually not allowed to go back there while I'm off duty, but I'm sure one of my coworkers could." I'm still pretty cheery, still in a good mood. Then she says, No, I want you to do it. I've been watching you the entire time I've been here, and I've noticed you've been on break too long anyway. Stop being lazy." It wasn't necessarily what she said, but her darn entitled tone irritated me, and I'd had a couple of drinks in me already. Meanwhile, my bartender friend can't get a word in to offer to go get them, so she just starts giggling like crazy because she knows what's about to happen. Cue every server's dream. I reply, "Actually, I'm not lazy. I'm here on my night off, as I've told you, spending time with my friend and having a few drinks. You're being an uppity jerk and killing my vibe, so please get out of my face and ask someone who's actually on the clock." Right then, as if the gods were on my side, my awesome manager walks behind the bar from the kitchen, having heard everything. She immediately takes her rage out on him. He's really chill and doesn't care about people like this. It's more headache than it's worth to him. He just waltzes back to the office, grabs her fake Dolce & Gabbana glasses, brings them out to her, and tells her to kindly pay her bill and not come back. In retrospect, I probably shouldn't have said what I said, but she's not allowed to come back anyway, so whatever. Guys, if I were in her shoes, I totally would have gone back there to get the glasses and then scuffed up the lenses a bit while I was back there. Ma'am, it was like that when I found it. I've been reading too many revenge stories. I swear I have a revenge plan for every situation in life. Oh my goodness! This next story is titled, "Just because I'm young doesn't mean I can't be the boss." I worked at a very popular nightclub, multi-level younger crowd downstairs, big spenders upstairs. We're talking $70,000 a night on our biggest nights and averaging around $30,000 on normal nights. We used to get tons of applications because the staff made great tips. I started at the bar as a bouncer for a summer job when I was 19 and ended up liking it and being good at it. Fast forward a couple of years and I'm 22 and have been made general manager of the bar with about 50 staff members. We open during the week for deck drinkers, and I wouldn't usually be dressed to impress on some of those days, as I wasn't in the office all the time or I'd be doing work around the bar. Anyway, I come down and let the staff in so they can get to work. Before we open, a girl knocks on the door. You know the type, looking down her nose at everyone with a holier-than-thou attitude. I open the door for her and ask, "How can I help you?" She takes one look at me in my boots, work jeans, and t-shirt, then scoffs. She walks right past me without so much as a "how do you do," and tells the bartender she's looking for the manager so she can pass in a resume. I have the distinct pleasure of watching her face go red as I tell her that I'm the manager and toss her resume immediately into the garbage without looking at it. A lot of the customers we have spend big money and look like nobodies. I'd actually pay money to see the look on her face. Guys, you can't judge by first impressions. It's actually very easy to look rich, Anybody can swipe a credit card and have a Louis Vuitton purse and be thousands and thousands of dollars in debt. Just be nice to everybody. As a reader dropping a comment on these stories, I'm loving the mix of petty revenge, workplace justice, and entitled people getting their comeuppance. These tales are packed with satisfying moments where quick thinking and sharp responses turn the tables on rude behavior. Here's my take on each, written like I'm chiming in on a forum. My beardless baby face gets me in trouble at work. Oh man, this one's hilarious. OP's babyface getting them mistaken for a teenage intruder in their own office is peak misunderstanding. The security guards dragging them out while they're just trying to shower after biking to work? I can't stop laughing. Thank goodness for Mark swooping in to save the day. Katie's panic when she realized her mistake is so relatable. Bet she double checks now. The commenter's neighbor looking like a 10-year-old without a beard had me cackling. Baby faces unite! Ever been mistaken for an intruder at your own job? Poor parking garage behavior preps prospective employee for poor performance eval. Parking jerk flipping out over a full garage sign and cussing out OP only to tank his own job interview? Karma's finest hour. OP calling him out on his cool as a cucumber claim with the parking lot meltdown was a masterstroke. Bet his face was priceless. Love that he learned his lesson and got a job elsewhere. The commenter's note about accountability is spot on. Sometimes a reality check is what people need. Got any stories of a candidate's bad behavior biting them in an interview? Bartender tries to throw me out. I'm an employee. Poor op getting dragged out of their own workplace at 18 because they look 13 is both hilarious and mortifying. The bartender's disappointed mom face turning to regret when she saw the staff shirt is comedy gold. Her flipping to super helpful mode afterward is the wholesome twist I love. The commenter's right. OP's skittish deer energy makes this story even funnier. Ever been kicked out of your own job by mistake? I thought that couldn't be the price, so I just ripped off the tag. This lady ripping off price tags to scam lower prices is bold, but OP catching her in the act? Perfect. Her "you don't work here" denial when OP's wearing a name tag is peak delusion. Leaving the cart and fleeing when called out is so telling. Busted. The commenter's Walmart hockey stick story is too real. Scammers are everywhere. Anyone else caught a customer trying a sneaky retail scam like this? I'm your server and the manager. This Karen snapping her fingers and scheming for free wine because she checked liquor store prices? The audacity. OP revealing they're the bar manager and shutting down her complaint is so satisfying. Her sitcom-level expression change must have been epic. Love that her friends ditched her and became regulars. The commenter's "I'd be so embarrassed" is spot on. Don't try to scam a pro. Got any other stories of entitled customers getting owned by the manager? Yes, I do work here, and no, I can't do that for you. The entitled, regular demanding op fetch her sunglasses on their night off? Rude! OP's "I'm off duty" ask someone else while keeping it cheery is perfect, and the manager banning her for her attitude is the cherry on top. The commenter's scuffed lenses revenge fantasy had me laughing, petty but tempting. Ever had to shut down a customer who thought you're on call 24/7? Just because I'm young doesn't mean I can't be the boss. The snobby applicant scoffing at OP's casual work clothes and bypassing them for the bartender? Big mistake. OP tossing her resume in the trash as the general manager is such a power move. Bet her red face was a sight. The commenter's point about not judging by appearances is so true. Flashy doesn't mean rich, and casual doesn't mean low rank. Anyone else seen an entitled job candidate crash and burn like this? That's it for another episode of our I Do Work Here Lady. If you guys enjoyed the stories, be sure to leave a thumbs up and let me know what you think. If you aren't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any future stories. I try my best to upload every day. See you guys in the next one!